Her oversized SUV jumped the curb and crushed my driveway lights like they were paper cups. And when she stepped out, she actually smirked at me, as if destroying my property was her morning hobby. That's when it hit me. This wasn't carelessness. This was a power move, a test to see how much I'd take. And I realized if I let it go one more time, the next thing under her wheels might not be just lights. I never thought moving into a quiet neighborhood in the suburbs would land me in a war zone. But that's exactly what it felt like once Marla showed up. She wasn't just any neighbor. She was the president of our HOA, the self-crowned queen who strutted around like the sidewalks and mailboxes, and even my front yard somehow belonged to her. People whispered about how she pushed her weight around, but nobody seemed willing to challenge her. Maybe because she had the HOA board wrapped around her finger. At first, I thought I could keep my head down, mind my own business. But the first time she flattened my lights, I should have known it was just the beginning. It started subtle. I came outside one Saturday and saw two of my little solar lights cracked in half, shards scattered across the grass. I told myself, hey, accidents happen. She probably misjudged the turn backing out. I replaced them. No big deal. But then it happened again and again, always the same angle, the same tire marks cutting into the edge of my drive. By the third time, I didn't need a detective to know it wasn't random. One morning, coffee in hand, I caught her in the act. I watched through the window as she cranked that wheel just enough to veer onto my side, rolling right over the lights, didn't even hesitate, didn't look back, just crushed them like it was her God-given right. My jaw clenched so tight I thought my teeth would crack. I marched over as she stepped out of her SUV. "Marla, I think you just ran over my driveway lights," I said, keeping my voice as even as I could. She barely glanced up from her phone, sliding her sunglasses higher like I was some annoying fly buzzing in her space. "Oh, those little things? They were in my way." "In your way?" I stared at her. "They're not even close to your driveway. They're on my property." She sighed, dramatic, like I'd just interrupted her spa day. "Well, maybe if you didn't put them so close to the curb, I wouldn't have to run them over. You should probably move them." I wanted to explode right there, but arguing with her was like shouting into a hurricane. I bit back the anger, told her to just be careful next time. And she actually laughed, and said, "Please, you can afford it. Besides, they're ugly anyway. I'm doing you a favor." Then she strutted into her house, leaving me standing there fuming at the wreckage. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about lights. It was about control. She was showing me she could bulldoze right over me, and the HOA would let her. Still, I tried to go through the proper channels. I filed a complaint at the next HOA meeting, sat there across from Greg, the HOA president, an older guy who practically worshipped the ground Marla walked on. He rubbed his temples like I was giving him a migraine. "Look," he said, "we can't control how people drive. Maybe you should consider moving the lights." "They're not in the way," I snapped, my fists curling under the table. "They're on my land." Greg gave me a tired smile. "We have to keep the peace in the neighborhood. Just compromise." Compromise? With someone who was stomping all over my property? That meeting was a joke. The very next day I got a letter in my mailbox, not a warning for her. No, but for me. The HOA claimed my decorative features could be a hazard for vehicles. They wanted me to reconsider them. I stood there on my porch reading that letter, my blood boiling. She smashes my lights on purpose. And I'm the one getting threatened? From then on, Marla didn't even try to hide it. She swerved harder, gunned it like she was testing how far she could push me. One evening, I watched from my front window as her SUV roared across the edge of my property, glass and plastic exploding under her tires. And then she had the nerve to look up, catch my eye, and wave. That little smirk, it was like a slap in the face. I confronted her one last time, showed her the camera footage on my phone. "This has to stop," I said, my voice shaking with rage. She glanced at the video for all of 2 seconds, then waved her hand. "Calm down. They're just lights." "They're my lights," I snapped. "And you're breaking them on purpose." She tilted her head, smirked again. "Well, if you're dumb enough to put them there, that's not my problem." Then she laughed and walked away. That night, sitting alone in my living room, staring at the pile of broken lights in the trash, I felt this wave of hopelessness crash down. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was dumb to fight this. Maybe I should just rip them all out and forget it. What was I doing? Picking a fight with the HOA president, the woman who had half the neighborhood eating out of her hand for a few hours. I honestly thought about giving in. I imagined the quiet that might come if I just surrendered. But then I thought about the principle. If I let her take this, what was next? My yard? My fence? My peace of mind every time I stepped outside? No, enough was enough. So I started planning. I did research, stayed up way too late scrolling through product specs and reviews. And then I found them. Industrial, grade steel bollard lights. The kind meant to stop vehicles dead in their tracks. They weren't cheap. Hell, they cost more than I should have spent. But at that point, it wasn't about money. It was about justice. I ordered them, waited, and when they arrived, I went to work, dug deep holes, poured concrete, reinforced with rebar. I worked late into the night, sweat dripping, my arms sore, but I didn't stop until each one was locked in place. From the street, they looked just like the old lights. But I knew better. These weren't lights anymore. They were barricades. The next morning, I stood on my porch, coffee steaming in my hand, heart pounding, right on schedule. Her SUV roared to life. She came barreling out of her driveway like always, the same smug speed, the same entitled angle. Then, crunch. But this time, it wasn't plastic giving way. It was steel meeting steel. Her SUV jolted violently, front end bouncing, a horrible screech of metal ripping. The whole car lurched and stopped dead. I sipped my coffee, fighting back a grin. Marla stumbled out, red-faced, staring at the shredded bumper hanging by a thread, the flat tire sagging into the asphalt. She spun on me, screeching, "What the hell did you do?" I leaned against the railing, calm as Sunday morning. "I didn't do anything. Looks like you hit something." "You know damn well what I hit," she shrieked, pointing at the unscathed bollard light. "That," I said, shrugging. "That's a driveway light, same as before. I just upgraded to sturdier ones since you seem to have trouble avoiding them." Her face went from red to purple. "You can't do that!" "Why not? They're on my property. HOA rules say decorative lighting's fine within your boundaries. Guess what? These are." For once, she didn't have a comeback. She stormed back to her wrecked SUV, yanked out her phone, and hissed, "I'm calling the HOA." But I was already 2 steps ahead. Before she could spin her sob story, I'd emailed the entire board and half the neighborhood. Attached the crystal clear video of her destroying my property, over and over. The evidence was airtight. So when she marched into the HOA office later, expecting to play the victim, she walked straight into a firing squad. Greg, her usual lapdog, actually held up a hand to shut her up. "Karen," he started, then corrected himself. "Marla, before you say anything, we have the footage. You've been deliberately damaging property for months." She sputtered. "No, it was... He set me up. Save it! Another board member cut in, waving the printed still shots. We're done covering for you. You've abused your position long enough. Then came the hammer. A $5,000 fine for repeated destruction of property and reckless driving. And as if that wasn't enough, they'd uncovered how she'd been funneling HOA funds into her own landscaping and even golf club memberships. They announced a full audit on the spot. I sat there watching her face crumble, her eyes darting, her lips twitching like she wanted to scream, but knew it was useless. For the first time, the queen of the HOA had no crown, no army, no escape hatch, just the wreckage of her SUV and the ruins of her little empire. When the meeting ended, she stormed out, clutching the fine notice like it might bite her. Outside, her car sat lopsided, waiting for a tow truck. Neighbors had gathered on their porches, whispering, pointing, laughing quietly. The tow guy shook his head, muttering, "Damn, lady, you must have hit a curb at full speed." Marla snapped, "It was a hazard, a trap." He looked at the untouched lights, then back at her mangled SUV. Sure it was. I walked past her slowly, met her eyes, and smiled. Maybe next time. Marla, just stay in your own damn driveway. Her jaw clenched. Her hands shook. But she didn't say a word. She couldn't. And that silence, that was the sweetest victory I could have asked for. Lesson learned? Sometimes the only way to stop a bully is to make sure the wall they run into is stronger than their ego.